You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran, episode 108. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Release Your Resistance podcast, or welcome for the first time if this is your first episode that you're listening to. I'm so glad that you have found it. So I say welcome back because it has been a few weeks since the last episode, which was a very fun and interesting interview with Zane about journaling. If you didn't get to listen to that, once you're done with today's episode, make sure you go back and listen to that one because it was also a good one. And today I'm super excited to introduce you to another one of my fun creative friends, Amy Masinelli. She has recently published her first children/adult book. You'll have to be the judge of who you think the audience is, but the book is called The Conscious Baby's Alphabet, and it is bite-sized enlightenment for all ages. Amy was gracious enough to come on the podcast today to share with us how she brought this creation into existence and what it means to her and how she's using this work to benefit women and girls and people in general. So I'm so excited for you to listen to this interview, to learn about Amy and the book and all sorts of other things. So here we go. Hey, Amy, how are you doing today?
Great. How are you, Bex?
I'm excited to talk with you about your book. I've been hearing about it for so long, and now I finally have my own autographed copy in my hand, thanks to you.
Yay! Yeah,
I know. Yay. Why don't we back up and you talk about the creation of this book? How did you get from not having a book to now being a published author?
Yeah, so the book is called The Conscious Baby's Alphabet, Bite-Sized Enlightenment for All Ages. And it really just came truly in a moment of stillness. I get up really early some mornings to be on some Zoom calls like we all do. And it was in that moment of silence and stillness, I think I was still half asleep, that I just had an idea. I kept thinking, A is for appreciation. And wouldn't it be kind of fun in a way if there was a children's book that used bigger concepts for their letters as they went through the alphabet, instead of just A is for apple, B is for banana? What if it was like appreciation and beauty and intuition? I just thought it sounded fun. And I just started literally at that moment jotting it down. Well, what would I say? What would I say for C? What would I say for E? And I just, in about 20 minutes, had the whole thing, a word per letter, and then one sentence of what I define as that word. And then I thought, okay. I think it'd be cute if a little baby was thinking these thoughts throughout the book. And that's really kind of how it started. I don't have a background in publishing, though I've historically been a good writer, and I've been published in local magazines throughout my career, but never in regards to a book. So that was kind of how it started. And then I literally followed my own instructions from the book and baby stepped it from there, one step at a time. You know, nothing serious going on. It became a fun passion project.
Wow, that's amazing. So yeah, what does baby stepping mean? So if someone else is like, what? She just had an idea one morning and now she is a published author. How did that happen? What were some of the baby steps that you had to take?
The overarching message of the book is, and I even say in the back page, it says, because the path to a fulfilling life is really just a series of baby steps. I think we all sometimes get big goals in our mind, big ideas, big projects, and we become overwhelmed because we're thinking about the end and I don't know how we're going to get there. And then you have to step back and go, wait, it really is just a series of steps. So for me, a baby step meant I had the idea and then I put pen to paper. Okay, that was a step. And then I thought, well, let's see, who's going to illustrate this? What would I do? And then I remembered I had caught through a fun synchronicity a free webinar by a gentleman who is teaching people how to get ebooks on Amazon. And I'm like, wait a minute, I remember I saw this webinar. So I went back and found the notes I'd taken from this webinar. And there was just one line in there about there's a site out there that has freelance contracted illustrators.
Right.
And then I went there. And I will tell you, when I went there and I started flipping through 100 illustrators and looking at their work, it was becoming overwhelming. And I know enough at this point to know if my feelings are my guides and I was starting to feel overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this away now for a moment because I'm going to set it aside. And I'd come back to it like 2 weeks later, and then I'd open it again. And then for some reason in that instant, I was aligned just right. I was feeling good. And boom, I saw an illustrator I wanted. So I reached out to him. Literally just take a little tiny step in any direction. And I think the key is to lose that attachment to the outcome. Yes. I didn't really know. I wasn't getting so like, oh my gosh, this is going to be my new career. It's going to have to be at 20 bookstores. Who knows? Maybe it will. But I was just like, it was almost like a funny little secret. I didn't even tell my best friend about it till I was already putting it as a self-published ebook on Amazon. Yeah. Because it was just kind of this almost like a funny little thing for myself. I'm like, oh, this is funny. And as long as it kept feeling fun, yes, I kept going with it. So that is a long-winded way of sharing with you how I think of baby steps. And again, it's just detaching from that overarching big result. Even, I think a lot of times I've heard people say recently, because a lot of women do this, especially when you think of, I want to lose 20 pounds or something. Well, that sounds overwhelming. But if you go, you know what? Today, I'm just not going to eat a bagel. That could be the baby step. And people kind of forget the importance and value in the baby steps. Because in the end, all it was a series of baby steps. Totally. I think it has to be some huge revelation, and it really rarely is.
Yeah. So that morning that you got that idea, what year was that?
That was early fall of 2020. We were all quarantined.
Yes. And that is a perfect example that you got this idea, and I'm guessing, but correct me if I'm wrong, that morning when you had that idea and you started writing down the alphabet letters and the words, you weren't thinking, oh, I think this is going to be an illustrated book. You were just thinking, this is fun. I like this list. Or what were you thinking?
You know what? I was thinking, yes, it was fun, but that the initial thought was this would be a cute children's book. Mm-hmm. That's all I thought. I didn't know. Yeah. Am I going to do that? What does that mean? I actually even got on a website called Meetup, and I found out that there were some authors groups there, and I joined some of those to kind of figure out what people are doing and who's self-publishing, who's working with publishers. And like I said, I initially put it on as a self-published ebook, and that was an experience for me. And then, a few months later, it was like, hey, you know what? I think I want to make it a real published book. So.
Nice. Yeah. Well, congratulations. A lot of people say, I have a book in me, or I want to write a book, or I would love to write children's books. And that's where it ends. But you actually followed all those baby steps, and now it's out here in the world for all of us to buy and read and share. Is it a children's book? Because I enjoyed it.
I know. And I know you and I, being friends, have had this conversation before. And that's why I subtly, and maybe it's not so subtle, say it's bite-sized enlightenment for all ages. I do love the sentence on the back that kind of gives the synopsis. It kind of says it all. It's a playful guide for those who are babies of age or consciousness, or who simply enjoy a Cliff Notes version of spiritual principles. So to your point, it looks like a children's book. Sure. And it could be used there, or like it says, for those who are babies in consciousness. This overarching idea for me was truly, it could be just the initial building blocks for anyone at any age to have, live their best life, as the saying goes, and learn some of those very basic spiritual principles. I hope people look at my definition. I hope they think about, I don't agree with that. I do. Maybe they'll look some things up. Maybe it'll just spark some curiosity to dive into what everyone individually believes. So, exactly. Right. So for me, I love books like this anyway. And you and I have talked about, I would buy this book for myself, but I do love children's books in general. So my hope, even though the publisher has gotten it gratefully onto Amazon and Barnes and Noble, I would love to see it in little stores where journals are sold and paper stores. And as you know, it's usually the mom that buys books for the kids anyway, but
Yeah.
so
Or
you're
the
right. It really
aunt. Yeah.
is for all ages. Yeah.
Well, and I could imagine buying it as a gift for a baby or someone very young, and I could imagine it being read to them as they grow up. It's got really cute illustrations in it, so anyone would want to choose it to look at the pictures. And then I can imagine as the child gets older, she keeps on going back to it and keeps on reading it or having it read to her, that eventually those words, those definitions become almost like mantras or touch points or things that she thinks of when she thinks of that vocabulary. So we have kind of skated around a little bit. It's not a storybook like a plot with, a character who goes through a situation. It is an alphabet book, and each letter of the alphabet has a word. So tell us some of the words that are defined.
Yes. And it's funny because I have to actually have it in front of me to even remember what I wrote. Because sometimes I look at it now, Bex, as it's finished and go, oh, wow, like this is
like,
good.
Yeah, it's like reading it for the first time every time, right?
It is. And and also that moment of, because it was just kind of a baby step, see where it goes, like, wow, I did it and it's here and I'm holding it. So it's kind of fun. So like I said, what always first kept popping in my head was A is for appreciation. A is for appreciation. Again, I could have done G is for gratitude, but for some reason, A is for appreciation felt better to me. B is for beauty. I did M is for manifest. I am the powerful creator of my life. O is for optimism. I know I always have the choice to choose the positive side. One of my favorites, I was looking at this, is R. And I said, R is for receive. I graciously accept all gifts, even in the form of a compliment, because I know I am worthy of it.
Oh, that's so good.
And that's been, maybe I like that one so much because that's been a lesson that I've been practicing learning.
Yeah. And we all, as adults and children, we need that lesson, right? And I told you this story, but I'll just share it here on this episode, that when I get the copy in the mail, because as soon as you let me know it was live, I ordered my copy. And the day that it arrived, I was going to see my mom. So I brought it with and I showed it to my mom. And I was like, look, my friend wrote this book. My mom is a nice lady. She said, oh, let me see. She opened it up and we didn't plan it, or I didn't ask her to do this, but she ended up reading it out loud, cover to cover. And I just felt so transported back into being a child, hearing my mom read me stories. Oh. So it was so beautiful to have that experience again here as an adult, a great bonding moment with my mom. Plus, I got to hear her reaction or response to each of the letters. So as she was reading, she might say something like, oh, that's true, or, oh, I need that, and it was just so lovely. And that's why I just really have to say, yes, I think it's a great book for kids, but I know it's a great book for adults too. It's a wonderful book for adults.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's so sweet. And you're reminding me, another friend of mine who got it, she's in another state, but she once in a while texts me and she's like, well, I'm working on C and D today. She's like, I'm trying to focus on those two today. So you're right. It has been a really fun, just a fun way to, again, remind ourselves some of these basic principles. We don't need to make everything so hard. There's so many ways you can take, philosophy and spirituality and personal development. There are endless books, endless teachers, and which is so great. And you can really peel that onion. But I always come back to, though, like, to really have a fulfilling life, it's just some of these basic things. Again, we don't have to make it hard.
Right. And to shift directions a little bit, to one of the things that you wanted to do with the creation of this book was for it to benefit others and benefit people who could use some help. So you partnered with a nonprofit organization, right?
Yes, I did. And I should back up and say, I have a daughter. She's 17. And the baby, who's actually the image of the baby in the book, in the end, it looks like my daughter. And when I told this illustrator, who I've never met, I just said, I want a baby girl, make her chubby, make her cute. Yes. That's all the direction I gave him. And here he presented back to me this baby. I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks like my daughter did. So that was special to me. And I've always had a real interest, even back in college, doing women's studies of I was just interested in programs and initiatives that helped women and girls have better lives. And I never did a lot with it necessarily in my life, but I was always reading the books and following different leaders and things. And as the publisher had the book, I was approaching the deadline of all materials in, and I thought, how could I benefit a nonprofit with this? And I thought maybe I could figure out which organization and put the logo on the back. And so I start Googling, well, which girls organization or women's. Sure. And one of the organizations I ran across that really spoke to me and resonated with me was called Girls Inc. I had not heard of it before, even though it's been around for 158 years.
Wow.
Started in New York City, where they are still headquartered, and they have branches throughout the country. And I thought, oh, this organization is really cool. What they do is they partner with schools, grade schools, middle schools, and high schools. And they just add kind of an addendum program for girls that help teach some life pillars that the high schools just can't. Mm-hmm. Extra programs for strength and boldness and courage and mindfulness. And they do extra emphasis on some of the STEM programs of science and math, and just kind of adding that supplement to really help girls learn in a safe environment, just build that extra self-esteem. I'm like, that's really cool. So I thought, well, I wonder where there's some local branches. I am from Arizona, and I looked in Arizona first. I didn't see any active branches, but I do get over to California quite a bit. And sure enough, a huge branch in Los Angeles called Girls Inc. of Greater Los Angeles. I did not know them. We were still partially quarantined. I just found their main 800 number. I left a message. I said, this is who I am, what I'm doing. I'd like to benefit you.
Right.
And then weeks went by, and I was getting close to the publisher's deadline. I remember thinking, well, all right, if that doesn't work out, that's okay. Again, no attachment to the outcome. I was just like, that would be cool. And then sure enough, I get a call from a woman who heads their donors division of the organization. And they had not been in the office much because of COVID. So they were only in sporadically, which is why it took them a while to get back to me. And she said, oh my gosh, I love this idea. And would you be willing to have a Zoom meeting with our CEO?
Yes.
Which I did. Like, this all happened very quickly. And her name is Erin Ross, and she was lovely. And she was so I didn't even have to explain much. She was so into this idea. And she said, and sure enough, they were just getting ready to do a bigger focus on mindfulness and teaching girls about gratitude and quiet. And kind of their inner self. I just got them the book recently as well, because it just came out, and we are going to be partnering soon on public relations and how they can promote it. And again, a portion of my proceeds then of my royalties will go to Girls Inc. So
it sounds like a wonderful organization, and it sounds like a perfect match made in heaven between the organization and the book. I mean, what a perfect audience and what a perfect resource for them.
Yes, thank you. And of course, the book is gender neutral. Sure. It just, I think, again, for me, and having a daughter, and she's going to be an LA girl soon in college. And like I said, that just felt right to me. So I'm really excited to see what happens there and where that relationship might go. And but yeah, so I'm excited about that.
That is awesome. That's so good. Well, is there anything else that I didn't ask yet about the book?
I'll just say again, you'll probably put links on your podcast page, but that right now it is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble online, and it will be in other places soon. I've had such a fabulous experience working with a publisher. They do some of that for me. So right now, a web page is being created.
Just so that people don't have to spell out a long title or your full name or anything, we would just call this episode bexby.org/Amy Book. So it's AMY and then BOOK. And that's easy for anyone who's driving or walking to be able to pull up on a phone without typing too many letters. So eventually we can link everything, the new website and any links to the retail, so that people can get the book and maybe also find out more about Girls Inc. If this is interesting to you, or if you just want to see the cute illustrations or just see what your letter of your name is, and go grab the book, check out all the different alphabet letters and see what they stand for. I just love to ask all of my guests just some standard questions that I'm personally curious about and that I would always ask everyone anyhow. So are you a journal lover, journal curious, or a non-journaler?
I am a journal lover. Yay. And thinking that you might ask me that, caused me to reflect back, going way back to my childhood. I'm like, what is my relationship with journaling? And I tell you what, I had a Hello Kitty diary. It started with diaries, right? And I
Yes.
had the cute one with a key
Mm-hmm.
back then. And then I realized when it really got kind of more poignant was when I was in college, and I still have this book. It was first of all, I love stationery and I love pens. I physically love journals. I love the way they look. I love your journals. I love lots of journals. I like the paper and all the stationery stuff. I have this beautiful little journal from college, but what I was using it for was only to keep quotes in it that I thought was
Mm.
so impactful to me. So I call it the quote book, and I know right where it's at in my house. So that was kind of the beginning, I think, of just keeping track of things that were inspiring
Yeah.
to me. So it started there. And now when I journal, and I know you get really creative with your journaling. In fact, I just did a big journal session with myself at a spa yesterday, a
Oh,
little
wow.
self-care day.
Yeah.
What I'm really journaling is intentions, sometimes mantras, statements I really want to internalize in my brain that I'm writing again and again. Yesterday, I had a couple interesting thoughts, and I literally wrote down, that's an interesting thought. I wonder what that might mean.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that, that's how I
Yeah.
use journals, just to keep track of things that inspire me and my future thought, what I want in the future. And that's how I use it. But I love journals.
Yes. And that's, I think, one of the things that really solidified our friendship. I remember once we were going to go meet for a drink or something, and we both brought our planners. And we're like, okay, you first. And you whipped out this planner. You're like, look at this section, see how it has these stickers, look at this part, look at this. And then I was like, okay, here's mine. This is where I write this. This is how I do this. So if
For sure.
anyone is a stationery paper journal lover, find another kindred spirit and compare paper products and markers and stickers. It's so fun.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. So I love it. I love journals.
What about, so you mentioned a mantra just then that sometimes you use mantras in your writing. Do you have a mantra or more than one that you repeat to yourself frequently?
I always have one, and they change.
Sure.
So they change just depending on, it could be the day, it could be I now have a better understanding of something, of a concept of, so now I'm changing what that mantra is. But yes, I do always have one. But I will tell you a cute story. It was when my daughter, her name is Emma, and when she was about 12 months old, she was starting to toddle around the house. I noticed everyone would tell her how cute she was. She's cute. She's cute. She's cute. I thought, man, do boys get treated the same way, where they always told they're cute? And I thought, I want to make sure, because that's going to get really in her, and she is cute. But I thought, I really want her to understand that she's smart. So I told her when she was very little, and before I even really was deep diving into any of this kind of study, but I said, Emma, say, I am smart and cute, smart and cute. She used to go around our house dragging her blanket, taking the thumb out of her mouth to say, I am smart and cute.
I love it.
And boy, she is. And she's a very, very smart young girl, young woman almost. And I was teasing her the other day, and I said, hey, I gave you your first affirmation. We didn't even know it.
Perfect. Oh, so smart and cute. Yeah, that's great. What about any routines or rituals? Is there anything that you like to do frequently or often or daily even?
I do. So I do a daily kind of practice every morning, but I'm someone who, I'm kind of one of those people who's highly variable. Like I like to mix it up. But I always listen to something. I usually do a little bit of journaling. I listen to something inspiring, but not the same book or person or place every time. In fact, I was on a road trip not too long ago, and I knew it was going to be really, really early in the morning. And I'm like, oh, but I'm so used to doing my routine. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get up at 3 a.m.
Right.
I thought, you know what I could do? I created a playlist that I called Inspired Ride. I thought, there, I'll get in my car and I'll get my daily mojo going that way. So I always do something.
Yeah.
But I'm someone who I do like to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, so smart. And I love that you can mix it up. And that's a great offer for anyone else if you're thinking, oh, I have to have a routine, it has to be the same thing all the time, and I'm a spontaneous person, I don't like routines. Well, Amy just showed us you don't have to. You
Right.
You can do different things.
I feel like if anything feels like I have to or should, as you know, like let's set that aside then, or figure out something that brings more joy, because there are no real hard, fast rules about how we all approach this, as long as we're kind of, I call it just filling your cup in the morning. Filling my cup of coffee, filling my own cup.
Yes, I love it. Very good. Any more books or other future plans in the works right now?
So it's funny you say that. I do, but nothing I just have some notes of things that, again, that I had inspired ideas about. I do love children's books. It was one of the things I loved so much when my daughter was little. I loved reading her children's books. I still buy children's books for myself sometimes because I always think they have such great, powerful messages, and they're written in a simple way. And so I do. I have a couple ideas. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay, fun. Well, this has been such a fun and interesting conversation, and I'm so excited for everyone to hear about how this book became a reality, how it came into existence. It doesn't sound like you had a lot of resistance, but in case there was any resistance, just a reminder to take baby steps, and not to let anyone get too overwhelmed. I just think that's a great lesson. Anything else that you want to bring up or that we should mention before we end our episode today?
I just really thank you for giving me this platform to talk about the book. And I hope everyone would check it out. And I love what you mentioned about maybe you want to find just the letter of your name. And if anyone wants to contact me or you and has ideas of where I maybe want to approach to place the book, that would be great.
Right. Because right now you're kind of just looking at how to get it out in front of people, how to market it, how to promote it, right? You're just kind of doing a little bit grassroots.
Yeah. And what's nice is the publisher is getting to me soon here sales materials for the book, and that will help,
Yeah, that'll be great.
For sure.
So if anyone does have ideas and they want to reach out to Amy, you can write a comment on the show notes for this episode at bexby.org/amybook, AMYBOOK, and Amy can see the comments. And if you want to, then we can connect you that way. Or if anyone wants to reach out to me, I can definitely put you in contact with Amy as well. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and talking about the book and sharing your ideas with the world in a very cute and accessible way. I think everyone should have a copy of this on their coffee table or bookshelf, and everyone should give it as a gift to all the family members that they know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Amy, for coming on today's episode and sharing the example of how you had an inspired moment early one morning and took the baby steps to eventually create a published book that we can all share. Thank you so much for sharing that inspirational example with us. And for you, my dear listener, who has joined again for today's episode, or maybe, like I said at the beginning, joined for the first time, if you would like to contact Amy or leave your question or comments about today's episode, you can just go to bexby.org, that's BEXB.org/AmyBook, AMYBOOK, and you can see links to where you can purchase the book and where you can learn more about Girls Inc. Plus, you can leave a comment for Amy or for me. And if you're interested in some more bite-size information, not in the form of a physical book, but in the form of physical mail that is sent to your mailbox every week, I've recently started a postcard service where I send you a postcard every week that contains journal prompts or inspirational quotes or affirmations. So if you're interested in getting some fun, colorful mail in your physical mailbox every single week, you can join the prompt postcard subscription. Just go to bexby.org/prompt postcards. You can also get a link on the show notes for this episode at bexby.org/AmyBook. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed hearing our conversation. I hope you go out and get Amy's book for yourself and or for someone who would love it too. I will talk with you next time. Bye-bye. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexby.org to see how we can work together.